Hi, this is Lori from To the Trade, and we have Elizabeth Spriggs here. Hi, Elizabeth. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. How are
Just
you?
very good, very good. As you can see, this hotel room because I'm in Vegas for Vegas Market, and very excited to talk to you because we have a really, I think, topical conversation as people are figuring out their year and figuring out what they want to do for this year. But let's start to talk a little bit about you and your business. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Okay. So I'm Elizabeth Scruggs and I live right outside of Nashville. And my business is Superior Construction and Design. And I am a general contractor and interior designer. And I've always said that I'm the only female general contractor who's also an interior designer in the mid-state area. And so I've been doing that for 30 years. Had my business for 25, but I started building houses when I was 21. Been doing it a while. And we've just, grown over the years to do full scale renovations, new construction, and then also the interior and exterior of those homes. And so our projects range from, ground up new construction all the way to the last pillow to redesigning a living rooms for someone. So we kind of have our projects are kind of all over the map, but we love it. We've been doing a lot of renovations the last couple of years. Kitchens and baths are kind of our sweet spot, but I have two other designers that work with us, and I love the construction part. That's kind of my
I
blood.
love that. It's
Yeah.
so badass. I'm just gonna say that. That's so badass to be a
I don't
contractor
know. I don't know
and
that. Right.
a retailer is. I will say I think it's super badass, and because you've seen it from the other point of the interior architecture and architect designer, but rarely do you see the construction part of it, the contractor designer, other than like the husband wife design
Yeah.
build team or
Yeah.
the design build team. But you're both. Look at you. Per- That's very
Well, and I
cool.
started in construction first, so that I guess that's my true love, and then interior design just organically became a part of that. But, that's what lights me up is the construction part.
Well,
I love the design
every
team. I
design,
love them all.
right? Every designer I know, that's one of their main pain points is working, with a contractor, whether they trust them, whether they don't, what are the problems that come from that. And you don't have to worry about that because you
Yeah.
are the contractor.
Yeah. Yes. But it's funny. I do work with other builders a lot in my area, and I love that. We work with them. We're also cabinetry dealers. So we sell a lot of cabinetry to other builders. So one project in particular right now, I am working with another GC who is a friend, has been for a long, long time. And there's a designer on the project, and I am strictly the cabinetry dealer. So it's kind of funny to be on that end of it to see, to work in a different scope on this project, purely the cabinetry dealer, no design, no construction, but yet getting to see the whole process, come
Yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
that's fun.
I I would think that that would be really great and give you an edge because you could really have in-depth conversations that sometimes I think other designers might struggle with because they could not say, "Well, that's just the way we do it," and that's not possible to you because you know.
Yeah.
You're coming with a different level of knowledge and authority, I would think, onto those projects than a typical interior designer would, where they're like, "I know it's possible. I've done it in my past projects," but they can't really say, "This is how we do it."
Right,
You know?
right, right, right. Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah.
I
Um,
love that. Love that. Well,
thanks.
so we started talking about designers and their, adopting new technology and how that can be super, super overwhelming for designers. And it really struck a chord with me because I would say I remember having a long time conversation with a designer who was saying, I just feel I have to react to everything and it makes me feel like I can get nothing done. And I think a lot of designers probably struggle with that. I mean, everyone has the new piece of advice, the new tool, the new app, the new website, the new way to do business, the new accounting package, the new project management software, the new coach. It gets overwhelming for me. I can't imagine how it wouldn't get overwhelming for you. We have for a long time tried to disseminate that noise. So if I write a blog post about remember writing a blog post when Google had some big change, and I was like, "This is what they said in their annual review. This is what they are doing. So they're changing some things here and here that will affect your business. But this is when you need to react to it. You don't really need to react to this today." And I think that kind of information is so important because it can get so overwhelming. Can you tell me a little? I mean, you really brought this conversation to me too. So tell me a little bit about, moments that you've struggled with this.
Oh, yeah. I think anybody in our industry has probably struggled with that at some point or another. And I think what I share with you specifically is about 8, 7 or 8 years ago, there is so much in our industry, which we're fortunate to have so many opportunities for education and people to learn from and all of that. And so it's super easy, or I found for myself, was super easy for me to get caught up in everything. Like, there is a new platform, there is a new software, there is a new coach, there is a new book that you have to read. And I wanted to do it all. I wanted to try it all. I thought, and I think a lot of us think, well, we've got to be on top of the next thing to be able to function our very best. And I finally got to a point where I was trying so hard to do everything, I wasn't really doing anything, if that makes sense,
No,
because
it makes perfect.
yeah,
Yeah,
and at the bottom line is, we've got to put out the work, and if and I found myself like just so torn between wanting to do everything and all, try the new software, try everything, and I wasn't. If you do everything, you can't do one thing well. And I just found myself like, okay, I've got to pull it back, quit listening to all the other voices. And I'm not saying that they're not good. And because we have, like I said, so many things available to us, but I had to really rein it in and think, you know what? It's okay if I don't try everything. I've got to focus on the one thing or the two things that I'm good at and find what works for me with those things and focus on that. And
sure.
it's hard, because
It
as
is, because those
entrepreneurs
other new are exciting
and
and they feel.
creative people, yeah, we want to do it all and we get excited. I do, great, and we want to do it. And I just found that for me, I just had to rein it in. I just had to rein it in and it's okay. It's okay. We don't
Yeah.
have to do everything. It's really good if we don't do everything.
No, in fact, the person that I interviewed prior to you, she is a website manager. She develops websites and she does content marketing for designers. And, I think it's smart to have, to try new things, of course, but I think some designers are missing the basics of things that they should have that are just basics, and this might be considering, somebody might be listening to this and think it's super overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be done today. I'm just going to preface this, but like your website, make sure you're blogging once a month or so, and make sure your portfolio has words on it that tell you what you did, and make sure that you have your location on your homepage. Just things that you own that are your part of your business that you own, because social media could go away at any point in time. TikTok just, went away and came back. And we originally started on Google Plus, so I know that very well. That you can just disappear tomorrow.
Yeah.
So those are, to me, there are some core basics that are part of your marketing that also can be overwhelming, like doing an email, once a month, doing a blog post once a month, doing a asking for Google reviews. But if I were giving my, sitting down with a room full of designers, which I do often, I always say just like the basic things are the more important things rather than, chasing this tool, chasing that tool,
Yes, that and consistency.
Yes. Yeah.
Consistency
You can't,
with what
you
you're doing.
can't.
Mhm.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
think we all get caught up in, I know I will just say I know designers who do this. So they get on Instagram and they're gonna make a post for Instagram. And then they're looking at an interior design community, hopefully,
Yes.
and they're looking at their friends' posts. and they're thinking about what they want to post, and they're like thinking, I don't know what I want to post. And pretty soon they've spent 2.5 hours thinking about to post, and then they don't post, and then they get they get
Oh,
off of
yeah.
Instagram. Yeah. So that's the spinning wheel, the doubt. I mean, part of that is fear and doubt, and we're not wanting to be judged. And part of that is the shiny object of there's this person's doing this project and this, oh, that's cool. It's the stuff they love. A lot of times designers get on Instagram, they're following each other. So they're seeing events that are popping up and they're seeing fun work and they're seeing, we can all get sucked into that. But that puts you in a position of, is what I'm doing good enough sometimes too,
Comparison.
right?
Yeah. There
Comparison. And I think that's when they will ultimately maybe not post at all, or maybe, instead of, I'd rather see designers, use any scheduling tool. There are free ones like Facebook has one, Creative Market. I think you should just Google like Facebook Creator Market, and you can schedule Instagram and Facebook with that. It's free, and I mean, for consistency basis, I mean, this is a lot, but I do 5 posts a week for designers on Facebook and Instagram. I still think they get a lot of traction. A lot of people are talking about Meta leaving, but I still think that's for right now until we figure out which way the wind blows. That's probably what I would stick with. And I know myself because I've done it. If you if you really get into a moment where you just that's kind of like your set it and forget it stuff, you can do a month worth of posts in an hour. Really,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
schedule this image, you link it to your Google Drive, you throw all your portfolio images in there, anything else that you want to talk about, and then you pull those images, you write a quick caption, you hashtag it with your brand, and you set it and forget it, and you're done after it takes an hour, but you're not on the scroll doing it. So you're not wasting 3 hours looking at everybody else's posts. You're just on the laptop instead of on the phone, looking at, your stuff and getting it all scheduled, and then you're done. To me, that's a lot more efficient than being on there. But then you can go on there and when you have a moment to actually have fun and you're
Yeah.
not feeling like you're wasting your time, because you're going to get on Facebook or Instagram, or if you're on the social world, you're going to get on there any day, every day anyway, just to look, but that you won't be feeling the pressure to
Right.
post because that will be already scheduled. But if you're at a job site and something cool is happening and you want to video it, or you want to send something into stories, or you want to add what I call personality posts, which are very important, you can do it on the fly instead of because the regular basics are already scheduled. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the strategy that I would recommend. But it's these little, really it's all about being organized and figuring out what those basics are. And then if you add on, you have to think about it and maybe go slow to implement new things because you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, it can be really like it's so fun to think of the new
Oh gosh.
technologies that are
Well,
I've had
and
2 conversations today alone with apps that are out in development for interior designers that are gonna be groundbreaking. There's one that helps interior designers market to, so it will search, quoted and all those, help a reporter out, and it helps you build your press release, and it helps you do that automatically instead of, to press. So I was like, "That's so cool."
yeah.
I love that. I love that if design had that. And then there was a person in development of I think it's called the Home Designers Guild, that I'll link to it when we do this podcast, and she's got an app that it's gonna be like a dating app kind of thing, but it's made for homeowners and designers. And
Oh,
so they can swipe right on a designer, swipe left on a designer, and quick see how they could, you know, match a designer. And I think that's really, I mean, that's fun
yes.
too. I mean, that
That is
sounds super fun, super cool. But you're right. Like, how much time does that take to set up that profile?
yeah.
And is that going to bring in business? Is that going to be
Right. And I think it
and
down to
yes,
knowing your audience.
sure.
Who do you wanna speak to, and where are those people? And what do you wanna
Yes.
say, and being really focused. That's what I found out. for me anyway. And so I schedule everything just like you were talking about. But and when I schedule the time that I do it. So every morning I spend about 30 minutes. I do it. And then I mean, sometimes I'll get on and do a quick story or something, but for the most part, I try not to get back on social media to scroll because it is before you know it, you've lost an hour or you get sucked into something else. But I think it's kind of like, it's just being really focused and honed in on who you're trying to serve, who your people are, and who you want to speak to hopefully create that connection with them where you will bring that business in. And
I
when
think hey, just what you just said, is brilliant. Honestly, I really wanna highlight what you just said for a second because I think that's a really and you probably would agree with me that that's often a problem for designers because they love their design friends. So
yeah,
often, what I see as an observer of designers, because interior design community, we've followed designers for the last 12 years. So we watch you as a we have like this bird's eye view of every designer and what they're talking about. And often I find designers will accidentally be marketing to other designers because that's where they feel comfortable. That's the
yeah,
conversations they're having instead of their ideal client.
yeah,
It
yeah,
because that's where they feel very comfortable talking about fabrics
sure.
or projects or, something that would appeal. I just say like trends at High Point. Trends at High Point are that is a designer to designer related content because designers care about the trends at High Point, but your clients really don't care about trends at High Point. They might care about here, I've sourced 20 different new products for, if I'm going to spring market, would think that, in my area, I live in New Hampshire. We have the seacoast. People are probably in April starting to think about their vacation houses or their outdoor living situations. So I would be highlighting here are all the outdoor furniture pieces that I thought were amazing at High Point Market.
Yeah,
Here are some cool design elements that I think would be great for your ocean house, your lake house, as you're trying to open those up. Those to me would be attracting the ideal client and what they are interested in, but they're less likely to be interested in High Point Market trends because they don't even know what High Point Market is.
right. They don't know what High Point Market is. And that's another thing. I think we get caught up in, well, Lori, I don't want to explain this to you because you know all about it already. And I don't want to seem like I'm trying to over explain to you. But most of our audience doesn't know what we're talking about. They don't understand
Oh,
it. And I don't think we can ever really over explain anything or, when we're speaking to them, and because, sometimes I'm with clients, I have to remember they don't understand what I'm talking about, and
no.
I'm assuming that, they think I'm talking down to them, when I'm trying to explain something. So I don't explain to it, or I don't explain it to them, but our general audience, that's looking to us for information, they don't really know. That's why they're following us. They want to know the
Sure.
details and the ins and the outs. So, yeah, so I
Those
think
their fears, frustrations, and desires,
right,
and
right.
not another designer's fears, frustrations, and desires, or your own fears, frustrations, and desires. So you have to think about it in terms of, you're thinking, I want an ideal client who have a full home renovation and will give me carte blanche. Well, you could setting yourself up attract that type of client if you're talking about process. This is how I work. This
Yeah,
is the kind of projects I love. This is what I work you know, and what are their fears and
right.
frustrations? What are they worried about? I mean, we did a big lead magnet that's free for designers this month with Christina Pritchard, who is do you know Kendrick and Cole? Do you know Joanne
Very
and
well,
Kelly?
very
Yeah,
well.
okay, so one of their daughters, Joanne's daughter, owns a new marketing agency for social
Yes,
media management, and Christina and I worked on a lead magnet for designers that would have 300 fears, frustrations, and desires that they could kind of use that to plan their content calendar for the year, and it would
yes,
address really, like, what the clients are thinking, is this project going to be really long? Is it going to be really expensive? Are we going to fight? What's going to happen when you install the units? What do I mean? That's what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about, you know, tile trends or colors of the year, They're not really,
Well,
that's
because you
not
have to be speaking to them about their that's all they care about. My project, not mine, but the client, if I'm a client, all I care
right.
about is my project and my house and what you're gonna do for me and how you're gonna make it happen. And so we've got to speak to that, and it just goes back to, like I said earlier, I was just staying focused, focus on that audience that we want to speak to and not be so caught up in I have to have the latest and greatest everything to serve everybody. We can't serve everybody, we've got to
Yeah.
serve our people. So,
I,
yes, staying focused and consistent. I think that's what I found worked for me and like I said, I've been doing this 25 years. And, back when I started, we didn't have internet. We had phones with cords. I mean, and I had a legal pad with pencil. That's how we did projects. And I mean, that's how I built my first house. I went to the bookstore and bought a book, and I learned how to do it. And now, we have everything at our fingertips. And I think it's become so easy for us to get caught up in the latest and the greatest. When the truth is, if somebody's following us, they just want us and what we can do for them, because it's all
right.
about how we can help our clients and how we can help them live better and serve them better.
Right. It's information overload is really what's going on. And honestly, it's made to be that way because anyone who's trying to sell to you, they want you to have that, oh my gosh, I have to do this or my business, and that moment that business is going slower, just hit a little lull, every business goes through it. That's when you're like, oh my gosh, you're very reactive in that moment
Right,
to
but that
any.
goes back to the consistency part. You've gotta be consistently marketing all the
All
time because, business, just like life, is gonna be like this, and there's gonna be some times when we're so busy we can't see straight, and then there's gonna be some times when we're not, and so we have to kinda maintain that focus and that consistency to help in those times.
You're so right. I mean, that is incredibly smart business advice for every designer here listening. If you want to have a business that does last 25 years, it is about consistency and it is about basics before you think about. And I'm not saying there aren't some amazing
Well,
apps or tools
absolutely.
that will save you time and increase your productivity. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've definitely adopted AI into your design community workflow, and it saves my butt a lot. You can use it. In fact, I was talking to somebody about, I think that it was Timothy Chalamet was on, I want to say Jimmy Kimmel, and he said, I ChatGPT'd the recipe instead of Google. And I was like, it's changed the game. For younger people are on that more than they are on Google because if you Google a recipe, you're going to get 50 blogs with
Yeah,
that recipe, and you're going to have to scroll down through a million ads before you finally get to the recipe at the bottom. And that's annoying to anybody who goes and looks for any recipe. So you can chat GPT it and you got it right there. I mean, even specific, like Ina Garden's, baked risotto recipe. I just Googled it last week and
they do.
it the whole thing right away, ChatGPT gave it to me instantly, no ads, no fuss. Here's what to do, you know? Here's all the steps. And that's I think it's become a game changer for so many people, and it helps you write that first, an idea, first draft of the blog. It helps you write that first draft of the email. It helps you write, do competitive information. So I don't think it's you're not saying don't adopt new tools that can help your business thrive, but think
Right.
about it for
100. I agree.
yeah,
You've just gotta find what works best for you and just be
sure,
consistent
sure.
with those few things instead
Yes,
of
yes,
being like squirrel, which I
yeah.
do all the time. I mean, that's
Me
just the way
too.
our brains work. That's the way that's why we do what we do.
The cool thing is just as much as you do. I love new tech. I love new,
Yeah.
I meet and I happen to meet a lot of really amazing people in this industry that are starting. really amazing technologies for the company all the time. And I'm like, oh, wow, that designers really could use that.
Yeah.
And there are so many designers that could use that. We just posted today on Instagram about what kind of accounting software have. And there were a lot of people who were really happy with their accounting software. And there were some that were like, I'm having the worst time ever. I need a new accounting software. This is great. There are times when you have to implement new products or new procedures, but you're right. It's the not being reactive
Yeah.
to that,
Well,
not
and
being
one of the reasons I love interior design community is because there's trusted voices there,
right.
people that
Sure.
I respect in the industry that are going to chime in and give me guidance, or give, honest, real time opinions. And, I love that. I love that. And
Yeah.
keeps you
Yeah.
fresh going everywhere.
Right. It gets down to the problem
Yeah.
that exists today for your business. And then here's some great, vetted advice on what to do. And you can make a decision based on like maybe the top three result. Maybe you want to try a few just so you can find the right fit for your brand, but
Yeah.
you will be able to make a decision based on what other people are using too, or what they don't like about something too. Like, oh, they don't like that, but I could use, I don't mind that problem or something like that.
Yeah.
That's true. What about, I'm going to ask you something that's kind of sensitive about this, but what about events? Do you find the same? And that I say that I'm at Vegas Market, but
I'm
it's
glad you
that
said that because I was thinking that while ago. So I don't know if it's my age. I might be showing my age here. But everybody's got FOMO. I've got JOMO. I got the joy of missing out on a lot of stuff. Now I do there are certain events that I will not miss. High Point Market, I'm gonna go twice a year because that
I
is
agree with you. I'm going to throw that out there. I think High Point Market for every
yeah,
designer out there listening, it is. I know it's a challenge to get to both market, right?
sure. It is. It
There's
is.
so much information overload.
Yes.
In a good way. You learn everything you need to learn. You can really set the path for yourself. It's that connection, and you leave it, even though you're taking the time away from your business, even
Yeah.
though that's a struggle for a lot of people out there, especially if
Yeah.
you have a little kid.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You're with so much creative juice. It's worth that alone is worth it. And it's free for designers to attend.
Oh yeah,
And there's
yeah.
people that feed you, you'll
That's right.
get
But you know, there are so many events that we can go to, and they're all wonderful. They're all so good. But you've got
yeah.
to be in and figure out what are the best ones for you and which ones are going to give you the biggest ROI as far as something tangible you can take back and actually use to serve your clients. So High
Yeah.
Point, that's where I get so much of my inspiration, and we get to connect
K-Bears
our
is
vendors.
great. Yep.
KBIS, I go every year. Design Influencers Conference. Those are the ones I'm
Yep.
not gonna miss. I mean, KBIS is kind of I've been going to IBS and KBIS for 20 years. I mean, I was I went to IBS. I went to the Builder Show before I ever ventured over into KBIS,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
before I knew everybody, and we had this wonderful community. 20 years ago, it was just a bunch of guys and me feeling weird.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wasn't the only one there, but and
You mean I've been the
everybody
only one in a
rush.
boardroom many times. It's a real
And of
weird
course,
feeling.
over there, everybody always assumes I'm there with my husband. Oh, well, of course,
Sure they do.
but
Even now.
so I'm like, oh no. I mean, he's here.
He's
You can
here with
talk to
me.
him, but he came with me.
Sure.
But so I think just like with software or any of the other things we've talked about, I think you have to find the events that work for you, and
I want
that's
to throw one out there that I am going to promote right now because I'm very excited
okay.
about it. But I'm working with Design Edge. It's March 27th to 28th in Phoenix this year.
I've
They will
seen
do
that.
one. Yes, it's
No,
so neat.
we had one in Nashville back.
Yeah, we had a Nashville one, but we're changing it. Lee and I are changing it a little bit, hopefully moving forward. And we're going to make the conference part be interior design community conference part, hopefully. And we are making we're this particular one in Phoenix. We're in March, we're going to do a speed networking with a handful of brands, about 16 brands. and we're going to have moderators that are assigned to those brands. And designers will be able to sit down in small groups of 6 with the brand and discuss what problems the brand has, what designers feel are going not really super well, whether that be supply chain issues, breakage, whatever that is, customer service, and then what is going really well. What do they like and they don't want the brand to change? They love that process. They love the tear sheets, whatever that is.
Right.
And then how designers can, with the senior leadership, these are people you typically wouldn't be able to talk to at KBIS or High Point Market
Well, yeah,
because
but
they're more
what a
hung out.
gift is that to the vendors to get
It
that?
is a huge
That's
vendor.
more that's even more valuable to the vendors, I would think,
I
than I mean,
I
it's
think
still
it's
valuable to us, but to the vendors, that's a
I think it's a win-win on both sides because it's really about putting the designer and the vendor on the same side of the aisle and saying, where can we collaborate more?
yeah,
Blogging and photos. And hey, can I use your PR for this project? Because I really think it should be on, getting press and I don't have money for a PR agency, but you big brand who is in my project do. So how can I leverage what you have and how can you leverage what I have? And how can we work together to gain more market share? I tell everybody this story, but if you really look at the 1% in the country of the United States of America, there are enough people in the 1%. If you're doing a typical 10-year remodel schedule, which is the average in America, to remodel every 10 years, then there are enough clients for in the 1% alone that give every designer in the country 7 projects a year.
and that's something.
So we're not getting the full 1%. Never mind the 2%, 3%, 4%. There's enough business for in the industry for every designer to be overworked. So how do we gain more market share by working together and considering brand and designer on the same side of the fence instead of opposing?
Yeah,
And how can we utilize each other's strengths and weaknesses to be better? And I think often, it's like I compare it to my gym analogy because I go to the gym every morning and my gym has a movie theater next to it and there's trash always outside the gym and it's driving me nuts. I'm telling you, it's driving me nuts. I go in and I talk to the person at the counter you might consider their rep. And I say, there's trash outside again. And they have trash cans, but they keep them inside. And I'm like, and I said, "Why do you do that?" And they said, "Because if they put them out, other people it's not their trash, will put trash in it. And that, whatever." And I'm just like, so basically what you're saying is you don't want people to put trash in the trash can? Like you'd rather trash all in the
I'd
front of
rather
your
put it on
business,
the ground.
to get into your business. And it's frustrating me so much. I'm like this close to canceling my gym membership and just getting treadmills. And I say this long story to say this is how it works in the furniture industry too. You, as the designer, will have a problem with a brand
Mhm.
and you'll bring it to your rep, and the rep might solve the problem, might not solve the problem. And you'll build up a little bit of a resentment and you'll stop using that brand. And the senior level of the management doesn't understand why.
Right.
Why is Elizabeth no longer buying from XYZ brand?
Yeah,
You know why,
and I've had
but they don't.
I've had that happen, and I've talked to them, but it's sometimes you just hit that you can't get to the next person that you need to talk to, or the correct
Absolutely.
yeah,
Person. So that's what this is about is we want to put designers in front of the correct person that, can move the needle forward and there could be better collaboration between brand and designer. Give designers a voice. I think brands really do care. There are a lot of brands that really do care about the designer market and actually are becoming more and more as retail
if
is
they
going
don't,
down.
they
They
should.
really
If they don't,
they
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 should.
they care. They care. And
Yeah,
but they weren't always set up to handle designers in this buying cycles that designers have versus retail. So
yeah,
understand how that works and understanding, I have a story that I tell brands all the time about a designer who had not gotten the brownies at Christmas time. And usually people laugh at this, but I'm like, it's not about the brownies. I mean, like for a designer to walk into that client's home every day and have your back and talk about, dealing with supply chain issues and broken product. And they're taking it in the face every time anything goes wrong on that
yes,
project.
ma'am.
And you don't think that they're worth the brownies, that is a big that is a big deal with designer because they need brownies to know that they are respected because
Yeah.
we all designers don't get enough respect, period, and all. So the brands need to recognize that it's about respect and how we work. You know, you might not get a sale from a designer 1 year because they're in a major design phase for 3 or 4 projects, and then the next year you're going to get a ton of business. And if they're not, if you don't understand the way they work, sometimes that can look like they are not using you anymore when really they're just busy on other aspects of the design and your time hasn't come. Yeah.
Honors is very valuable, I feel, and I'm loyal to the brands that are loyal to me, and I
Yes.
think we're all like that, and I wanna promote brands that support me and help me with support. It's when I know that, my rep for, I'm not gonna call a name brand, but XYZ Quartz right here is gonna back me up if we have an issue and they're gonna be there, then I'm gonna use them every single time, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
vendors need to understand that because we're driving the market. It's
You
not
are.
contractors. I can promise you it's
No.
not contractors, it is designers. It's not necessarily furniture salespeople. It's not brick and mortars. It is designers that we are driving the market in every phase of renovation, construction, furnishing, everything.
Yeah.
And there
And
are
setting
some
the
brands.
trends that even design people who don't use designers, you know, use because the trends are all set by the designers. I mean, that's what's on the cover of every magazine.
That's
That's
right.
what are the images that fly on Pinterest. It's designed projects, and then the trends trickle down to
Right.
the rest of the
Well,
market.
interior design is a luxury service, right? So not
Yeah.
everybody's going to be able to use us, but they're going to go to our website and they're going to look at our projects and they're going to pick them apart and think, I want that faucet or I want this. So we're driving that, whether we're
Sure.
selling that client or not, we're driving that. So what I choose to feature on my website or on my Instagram or in my blog, that all has, is a determining factor for sales for a brand. So
Sure.
I'm only gonna highlight brands that I like to work with that support me. Yeah, I
Well,
think that's
I'd like the
great.
hire designers as bloggers, pinning for designers, have social media collaboration more, have, PR exposure more. I'd love to just see how we could crack that problem of working better together and also being understanding and being a little sometimes empathetic to the brand. And I'm not saying
Right. Yeah. No, no.
you're
Yeah.
but there are designers out there that, maybe the client doesn't like that there's a little tiny flaw on a tiny corner of something, and they feel like they have to advocate for every little problem, and sometimes what they really need to do is manage the client expectation that it's not gonna be perfection. I mean, these things have to get shipped. They're gonna be, like, little tiny things, what we can do to fix it, to the best of our ability, but it's not going to be they're not gonna ship you a new table.
Right.
For every little thing, and if they did, for every single time there's a tiny little, scratch, they would go out of business. It's in
Sure.
our best interest to have each other's backs, and so it
Absolutely.
kind of goes both ways, and how does the brand educate the designers on how to have those difficult conversations with clients, but be able to support the brand, so I'm not saying for everything that's broken. I mean, there's broken
Right.
things that
Right.
need to be fixed, but sometimes it's a massaging the situation
Yes.
issue, and you're young enough or green enough that you don't know how to do that. That's an,
Right.
you
Right. Right.
know,
Right.
thing. So you're right. It's very designers can be very reactive to the same, and it's not their fault. There's so much out there, but
We get excited. We get excited.
it's hard not to be. It's hard. I mean, I have a
That
hard time missing events or, yeah, the new tools. I get just as excited as you do when I see something neat because I know there's a portion of designers that are struggling with that problem right now and would love this information. And so I get excited about writing about it, but what I don't mean for designers to do is to be reactive to that. You need to figure out what is movement for your business today. And it
right.
might not be this new tool that I'm excited about,
Right.
but or the conference or whatever. But
Yeah.
you should, if this resonates with you and if you're like, "Oh, gosh, I really need that, that's when you, to me, need to be thinking about it and looking at the options. It's not just
Yeah.
one option. You might want to look at what really would be meaningful to you. Sometimes I think KBIS and High Point are not to be missed, but they can be a little bit surface because they are about meeting a lot of people, seeing a lot of events, going to a lot of places, and it's harder to get like deeper at those particular events rather
It is,
than
but it goes back to that
sometimes with
focus.
small.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
smaller things are good. Yeah, yeah, you just gotta be really focused and know because especially if you're newer or greener, like you said, and you go to one of these major events, it's so overwhelming, and
Oh
you're
my
there 3
gosh.
days, and then you're like, "I don't even know what I did for those 3 days because
Yes.
I didn't
Do
have a
you know
plan."
the first time I went, I'll just be vulnerable on this story. The first time I went, I took a bunch of pictures and I didn't have a system. And I got back to write, content and I didn't know where anything was because I didn't take a pic. So that I've created a workflow where if I go into a showroom, I take a picture of the sign and then I take my pictures and I take a picture of the sign again as a habit now. It's forced in me because that first time in market, I didn't take pictures of, I took a ton of pictures and tons of videos, but I didn't take any pictures bookmarking where it was. So I had no idea where it was. So
We've all
I'm
done
like,
we've all done that, you know? We get there and we're so excited and you're just like, "Oh, I don't know what to look at," and you or I thought, "Well, I don't remember where this was or
sure.
or anything," you know, because it's
No,
so
no,
and it's
you
so
can't. You can't. Yeah, you're like, "Where was that? I don't know," and then it's embarrassing because you can't even post it because you don't know where it was about the content you did. Oh my gosh, or you don't know anybody, and I wanna say to you out there too, we do a lot of events at a lot of the shows. Come to the interior design community events if you want to, because that's a good way to meet other members and, because it can be almost like I know it sounds crazy, but lonely the first time you go to these big shows, if you don't know anyone, the younger designers, it can feel overwhelming in seeing things, but it can also feel lonely in a huge space where everybody seems to be best friends, has known each other forever and giving each other hugs. And you're the only person there that's just, I remember being the first time market being like,
it's very
we're
easy
number one point person.
to be lonely in a sea of people,
Yeah,
especially
it is.
at any of these events, if it's the first time you've been and it's overwhelming and you don't know anybody, or you see people that you know but you've never met them, and you don't want to walk up to them, and
Well,
we've all
walk up
done.
to me. Give me a hug. I
I
don't mind.
I
I'm a
know,
hugger. I don't care.
I know. Well, I'm gonna walk up to you Monday
So,
night.
yeah, fun. You can come sit next to me. I'm open for that. That's just the way I believe like community should be is like we're all friends. Let's just, let go
Yeah,
of I don't do the mean girl designer thing some designers have done to me, which is who are you again? I feel like I met her 7 times.
we all that's there. That I think
That
that's in
exists.
any industry, but I think it can be kind of prevalent in ours too.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
not
don't
always. There are way more good,
think
like,
so. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
sweet, wonderful, welcoming people, and tapping into them are, it's very easy, I think. I think IDC is almost a good litmus test because a lot of the people in IDC are that way. I just have found people respond to the content that we do. IDC members, getting together and sharing information. We do a let's follow each other every quarter, and I love it because so many people, I mean, we don't get followers from it, but our followers follow each other,
I know
and I
it's so
love
good.
watching those things. I love it. And then your feed is better because 'cause you're looking at, other designers' work, and that's very cool. I
Yeah.
love that sense of community. And anyway, Elizabeth, this has been amazing information, and I really think very valuable for interior designers. We're going to put this post out very soon. I'm gonna have your links, your socials, so every designer can come on and follow you and learn more about your wonderful advice about both probably being a contractor and design on your Instagram and website and learning more about you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been a great conversation. It's been so much fun, and I appreciate you having me on. And I'll
No
see you
worries.
next
Yes, yes, and bye now.
month. Bye.